The first thing I remember from that night is the sound of Cross's breathing, steady but distant, as we carried her through the narrow cleft that led out of the Nexus chamber. Snow drifted from the ceiling of stone, brushing her hair like cold dust. And each time a flake touched her cheek, she flinched faintly, as though the world itself felt unfamiliar against her skin. Maybe it did. Maybe everything felt alien to her now. The ritual had worked. The valley's claim on me had been broken. The burden had been lifted. But it had taken Cross's memories, her understanding, her identity, and replaced them with an emptiness that neither Halstead nor I knew how to fill. The moment we exited the cavern, a vast quietness settled around us. Not peace. This was something else. A silence waiting to judge. Waiting to confirm whether balance had truly been restored or whether the valley was merely pausing before a deeper, final pull. Cold air swept across my face, carrying with it the distant hum of the wooden tree line. The world looked unchanged. The same rolling tundra, the same thin layer of early winter snow, but everything felt different. The sky looked heavier, as though the stars themselves were watching. Cross shivered violently, clutching the front of Halstead's jacket, like an animal trying to make sense of touch. Her breath came out in short, rapid clouds, and her eyes, those silvered, flickering eyes, roamed the horizon without recognition. "Just stay with us," Halstead murmured, tightening his arms beneath her. "You're okay. We've got you." She stared at him blankly, as though hearing the shapes of words but not their meaning. "Where are we?" she whispered. Her voice was softer now, stripped of the confident cadence she had always carried. It felt small, and hearing her like that twisted something deep inside me. "You're safe," I said, though the reassurance felt thin. "We're taking you home." She blinked slowly, as if trying to process the concept of home. "I don't know that place," she said simply. Her honesty landed like a blade. We guided her across the snowfield, our boots crunching on the frost-hardened ground. The valley wind curled around us, brushing the back of my neck like a hand, as if testing whether we still belonged to it. For the first time in months, I didn't feel its mark on my skin. I didn't feel the pull. I wasn't the valley's anymore, but Cross was. As we climbed the ridge leading back toward the remote access road, Halstead leaned close. "She's alive," he whispered, voice tight. "Nathan, she's alive. You know what that means, right?" I swallowed. "It means she traded everything for that." He didn't deny it. We reached the old Ranger truck parked on the ridge. The headlights were dim, battery half dead from the cold. Halstead opened the back door and helped Cross sit. She folded into the seat gingerly, hands curling into her lap, like someone learning how to occupy her own body. Her silver eyes drifted past us to the valley below. "Something is watching," she murmured. I stiffened. "What is?" She tilted her head in that unnatural, fox-like way she'd never done before. "The place," she whispered, "the place remembers you. It just... let's go." Her phrasing chilled me. "Cross," I said, kneeling beside the open door, "do you remember anything? Your name? Who we are? Why we were there?" She studied my face for a long, unbroken moment. Hope flickered inside me. Maybe some piece of her remained. Maybe everything would come back slowly. Her memories of our partnership, our work, our conversations, the way she used to rest her boots on the dashboard and hum quietly when she thought she was alone. But then she shook her head. "I know nothing," she said, "except the light and the voice." My breath hitched. "What voice?" Her expression softened, almost sad. The one that said I was chosen. Halstead and I exchanged a look. We hadn't heard any voice. Not like that. She wasn't talking about the collector, not entirely. This was something deeper, something older, something tied to the original boundary itself. I reached into my coat and pulled out a thermos, unscrewing the cap and offering her warm water. She stared at the cup, unsure how to hold it, before curling her fingers slowly around the metal. Her hands shook as she brought it to her lips. Halstead climbed into the driver's seat and rubbed his hands together before turning the ignition. The engine sputtered but eventually caught with a low growl. I closed Cross's door and circled around to the passenger side. As Halstead eased the truck onto the narrow road, he exhaled in a long, ragged breath. "I don't know how we're supposed to explain this," he said. "Not to the town, not to anyone. We don't." I stared ahead through the fogging windshield. People don't need to know. "And what about her?" He nodded toward the back seat. I looked back. Cross was staring at her own hands as though trying to remember what hands were meant to do. "We protect her," I said. "The same way she protected me." Halstead didn't respond immediately. When he did, his voice was low. "She's not the same person, Nathan." "I know." "And she may never be again." "I know that too." He glanced at me, sympathy etched across his weathered features. "You loved her." It wasn't a question. I stared out the window, watching the valley fade behind us through drifting fog. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I did." Halstead didn't say more. He didn't need to. The rest of the drive passed in silence. It wasn't until we reached the outskirts of Greyweather, the nearest settlement to the valley, when Cross shifted forward in her seat, leaning between us. "There," she said softly, pointing toward the dark silhouettes of the town's rooftops. "Something changed here." Halstead slowed. "What do you mean?" Cross didn't answer at first. She pressed her palm to the window glass, as though listening through it. "The boundary," she whispered. "It's quieter." The hair on my arms rose. We hadn't told her anything about boundaries, markers, cycles, watchers, yet she felt it instinctively with a clarity that made my stomach knot. "What else do you sense?" I asked carefully. She tilted her head slightly, silver eyes widening. "The place that took me," she said slowly, "has stopped taking." Stopped taking. The phrase chilled me. If the valley had paused its pull, that meant something had been fulfilled. Cross's sacrifice had completed one cycle. But cycles never ended permanently. They weren't solved. They were reset. The valley would fall silent now, but it would wake again. "You're cold," I said gently. "We'll get you somewhere warm, somewhere safe." She blinked. The concept of safe, unfamiliar. "We need to find the old lodge," Halstead said, turning toward the cluster of wooden buildings near the water. "It's empty most winters. She can rest there until we figure out next steps." Cross looked out the window once more. "I feel like I've lived many winters," she whispered, "but I remember none of them." My chest tightened. When the truck rolled to a stop beside the lodge, a long, weather-worn structure built decades before any of us were born, I helped Cross out. She gripped my arm lightly, unsure of the ground beneath her feet. Inside, the air was cold but dry. Halstead lit the propane heater and stoked the fireplace until flames sputtered to life. Cross stood in front of it, palms out, fascinated by the heat. She moved closer, too close. I gently pulled her back. "You'll burn yourself." She looked at me in surprise, as though the idea of harm was a new concept. "I don't know what hurts," she said. The words hit like a punch. Her loss wasn't just memory, it was instinct, experience, self. Cross was a blank slate, an adult born moments ago, carrying the body and skills of someone she no longer remembered being. Halstead motioned for me to step outside. I reluctantly did, watching Cross settle awkwardly into an armchair, staring at the fire like it was an unfamiliar creature. The night wind cut hard as the door closed behind me. Halstead exhaled a plume of white breath. "Tell me you're all right," he said softly. "Because I'm not. I'm not either." He nodded. "Good. Makes me feel less insane." We stood in silence, only the crackling fire inside breaking the quiet. The moon cast a pale glow over the lodge roof, illuminating the frozen lake behind it. Halstead finally spoke. "What she said," he murmured, "about the boundary being quiet. She shouldn't know that, Nathan." "I know. And the valley. Stopping. That doesn't happen. It never just stops." I ran a hand through my hair. "It wanted me," I said. "It had a claim, a lineage, a right. When Cross offered herself, it accepted a new contract." Halstead looked toward the lodge window, where Cross sat motionless, watching flames. "So what is she now?" he whispered. I stared at her silhouette, lit by the fire's glow. "I don't know," I said, "but she's not gone." "Not gone," Halstead agreed, "but not the same either." I nodded. "She said something else," I added. "Right before you stepped out." "What?" "She said she feels like she's lived many winters." "So? She's only lived through 35, Halstead frowned. "What are you saying?" I took a breath. "I think the valley gave her memories, not human memories, not personal ones, but impressions, imprints, echoes." Halstead stiffened. "You think she remembers it?" I nodded slowly. "I think she remembers the valley." The wind shifted, cutting across the trees like a whispered warning. Halstead rubbed his arms. "Then we have to be careful," he said. "If she's connected to it now, if she's part of the threshold, it might not be done with her." "Or with me," I said quietly. He didn't argue. The valley's story never ended, not for anyone touched by it. We went back inside. Cross looked up as we entered, not with recognition but with instinct. Like a bird watching shadows, she spoke only 3 words. "The valley listens," and the fire flickered violently as though answering. Cross's words, "The valley listens," hung in the air like frost that refused to melt. Even the crackling fire seemed to hesitate for a beat, as though the room itself needed time to understand what she had just said. Halstead moved first. He pulled a chair closer to the fire, sitting opposite her, hands resting tentatively on his knees. Cross watched him with a strange gentleness, her silvered eyes reflecting the flames. I sat beside her, though not too close. I still didn't know how her connection to the valley worked now. Not fully human, not fully anything I could name. She looked fragile, but I'd seen her absorb the entire blow of the nexus. Whatever she had become, she was stronger than her shape suggested. "Cross," I said softly, "what do you mean the valley listens?" She turned her head toward me slowly, the way a deer turns toward distant movement, careful, alert, instinctive. She blinked once, as if assessing the weight of my question. "It listens to everything," she said. "To what you fear, to what you hide, to what you carry." Halstead shifted in his chair. "Does it listen to you?" A pause. "It speaks to me." Her voice changed, subtle and ethereal, like something else was using her lungs. I exchanged a glance with Halstead. Fear wasn't quite the right word for what we felt, but unease, tension, and the slow recognition that the valley had not ended with her sacrifice. It had simply changed its method. "What does it say?" I asked carefully. Cross's gaze drifted toward the window, towards the tree line beyond the lodge. "It says the wrong door was closed." I felt the blood drain from my face. Halstead leaned forward. "What door?" "The door that belonged to him." She looked directly at me. My heart stopped for a beat. "Nathan," she whispered, "it wasn't finished with you." I swallowed hard. "Cross, the ritual severed its claim." "It severed the claim." She nodded slowly. "But it didn't sever the path." Her meaning sank in like ice. Halstead exhaled sharply. "Damn it, Nathan, this isn't good. If it still has a line to you." "It doesn't," Cross said quietly. "Not anymore." "Then what path are you talking about?" Halstead asked. Cross brought her hand to her chest, where the pale silver glow of the amulet's aftermath seemed to pulse beneath her skin. "It's through me now," she said. "If the valley wants him, it must go through me." "That's not comforting," Halstead muttered. "It wasn't meant to comfort," she replied. I stared at her, unable to speak. She had become a shield, maybe voluntarily, maybe not. The valley had taken her memories, but not her purpose. Not completely. "Cross," I said softly, "why did you do it? Why did you take the blow instead of letting me do it?" She tilted her head slightly, her brows pinching as if grasping for a memory just out of reach. "I don't know," she said, "but I think something in me remembered that you weren't supposed to go." "Why not?" I whispered. She looked at me for a long moment. "Because it wants people like you." I felt the room tilt, and Halstead slapped a hand on the armrest, jolting himself upright. "People like him," he repeated. Cross nodded. "Those who seek answers. Those who walk into shadows thinking they'll find truth. The valley loves curiosity. It loves hunger. It loves the people who can't stop looking." The words hit me like a confession I'd been ignoring my whole life. I had always been drawn to patterns, mysteries, unsolved trails, things no one else wanted to touch. I always pushed deeper. The valley had seen that. It had wanted that. "So you took my place," I said. Cross blinked, her expression softening. "I didn't take your place. I became the lock." The lock, not the replacement sacrifice, not the offering, something else, something meant to hold the boundary shut. Halstead rubbed his hands over his face. "Okay, if she's the lock, what happens if the lock breaks?" Cross answered without hesitation. "The valley opens." Outside, a gust of wind slammed against the lodge, rattling every window. I stood, walked to the window, and peered out into the night. The forest was still, frozen, but something subtle, something instinctual crawled beneath the surface landscape. A vibration in the air, a pulse in the snow. The valley wasn't silent. It was waiting. When I turned back, Cross was standing now, her posture odd, straightened, as though receiving instructions from an invisible presence. "The valley says," she whispered, pausing as her eyes fluttered, "it can still be undone." I froze. Halstead cursed under his breath. "Undone? How? What does it want now?" Cross closed her eyes, lips parting as if listening. "It wants him," she said quietly. My stomach dropped. Halstead stood abruptly. "No, absolutely not. It already took you. That should be the trade. That should be enough." "It's not enough," Cross whispered. "Not for this valley, not for what sleeps beneath it." Halstead pointed at her. "You're not delivering him. I don't care how connected you are now. That's not happening." Cross looked at him with a strange calm. I'm not delivering him." She turned toward me. "He has to go." I stared at her, pulse thundering. "Go where?" "To the heart," she said. A chill crawled up my spine. "The heart of the valley?" I whispered. Cross nodded. "It's calling you, not to claim you, not anymore. It wants you to close something." "Close what?" Halstead demanded. Cross's eyes turned brighter, almost glowing. "The final breach." The words echoed through the lodge like a whispered prophecy. Halstead paced, shaking his head. "No, no, 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 we're not doing this. Nathan, you're not going back there. You barely made it out alive tonight." Cross stepped toward me, hands trembling, voice softer. "You're the only one it will let through now. The boundary recognizes you. The valley marked you even after it released the claim." "What does that mean?" I asked, though fear was already blooming in my chest. "It means the door isn't closed," Cross whispered. "It means you still have to finish sealing it." "I thought the ritual did that." She shook her head. "The ritual sealed the contract. It didn't seal the breach." Halstead slammed his palm on the table, making the thermos rattle. "This is insane. We should get help from outside." Cross cut him off, voice sharpening. "There is no outside help, not for this." "Why?" "Because the valley doesn't exist for anyone beyond its reach." Her words struck like a quiet revelation. People didn't see the valley, not really. Even when they stood at its borders, they didn't understand what it truly held. Only those pulled into the story felt its full gravity, and now I was being pulled again. "But why me?" I whispered. Cross studied me, silver eyes softening. "Because you're the one who can walk between fear and reason," she said. "You don't run from the truth, and the valley knows it." Halstead muttered a curse so harsh it scraped the air. Cross took one more step closer, her expression shifting again, not quite human, not quite something else. "You have until dawn," she said. "After that, the breach widens." A cold weight settled on my shoulders. "How do I find it?" I whispered. Cross raised her hand and placed her fingertips lightly against the center of my chest. Not possessive, not familiar, just searching. "You'll feel it," she said, "because it already knows your name." The fire behind her flickered violently. Outside, the wind howled and the darkness thickened. A line had been drawn. A choice had been made. A path had opened, and at the end of that path waited the place that had claimed my bloodline, the place that had whispered to me since childhood nightmares I had long forgotten. The heart of the valley, where everything began, and where everything now threatened to end. Cross's touch remained on my chest longer than I expected, a whisper of warmth that felt both grounding and frighteningly foreign. She was holding something she couldn't fully understand, a connection to an ancient force that wasn't meant for human memory. When she withdrew her hand, the air around us quivered faintly, the echo of her words lingering like a soft chime. "You have until dawn." Halstead dragged both hands through his hair before pacing the length of the room again. His boots thudded heavily on the wooden floorboards, each step betraying how deeply this development rattled him. "This is suicide," he muttered, stopping near the window. "Going back out there, tonight? Nathan, we don't even know what the heart is, let alone how you're supposed to reach it." But the moment he said the word heart, a tremor ran through me. Not a physical tremor, something internal, like a memory I'd never lived whispering to me from far away. "I think I do know," I said quietly. Halstead turned sharply. "How? How could you know?" Cross answered for me. "The valley marked him long before tonight," she said. "It whispered to him when he was young. It watched him before he knew what it was looking for. Halstead's expression twisted. "You're saying this thing's been following him? What, his entire life?" Cross nodded. "It chooses in advance." Something moved inside me at her words. Not fear, not dread, recognition. My earliest memories, the ones I rarely revisited, rose like ghosts. Nights when I'd woken with a pressure on my ribs, dreams of vast forests I'd never walked. The sound of a distant hum, like ice cracking on a winter lake. I'd thought they were night terrors. Maybe they were invitations. I grabbed my coat from the back of the chair. "I'll go alone." "The hell you will," Halstead snapped, stepping between me and the door. "You really think I'm going to let you walk into the valley by yourself? You think after what we've been through I'm backing out now?" "This isn't your fight," I said. "You're damn right it's not," he shot back. "But it became my responsibility the day I watched you choose to step into that valley instead of running the other direction." His jaw set with a stubborn determination I'd only seen a handful of times. "I'm going," he said. "End of story." Cross approached quietly, her posture a strange blend of grace and fragility. "He may need you," she told Halstead, "but you must not step into the breach. The threshold will reject anyone who isn't marked." Halstead crossed his arms. "Fine. Then I'll be the guy who pulls him back out if things go south." I nodded. "I can live with that." Cross studied us both with a faint, almost wistful expression. "Then you must leave now. The heart awakens when the valley's breath turns coldest. You'll feel it pulling you east." "East," I echoed. "Toward the timberline?" She shook her head. "Beneath it." A chill ran through me. "You mean underground?" I whispered. "Yes," she said. "The heart lives below, beneath the oldest ice." Halstead grabbed his pack from the corner. "Great. We're looking for a hole in the ground, in the dark, in a valley that hates us." Cross closed her eyes briefly, like she was listening again. Then she turned and reached for her coat. Halstead reacted instantly. "No," he said. "Not you." She opened her eyes. "I'm not coming with you." "Good," Halstead muttered. "I'm going somewhere else," she finished. "Somewhere the valley tells me I must be." Halstead stiffened. "Where?" Her expression didn't change, but her voice dropped to a whisper. "To the breach," my pulse hammered. "You said the breach will open at dawn." "It will," she said. "I must stand in front of it." Halstead's face turned red. "Cross, that sounds like a terrible idea. Like a monumentally, catastrophically terrible idea." She smiled faintly, an expression that didn't belong to the woman I knew, but to someone softer, more tragic. "Some locks require presence," she said. "Others require sacrifice. I don't know which I am, but I know where I have to be." I reached for her arm gently. "We're not losing you twice." She touched my hand lightly, her fingers tracing my knuckles. "You aren't losing me," she whispered. "You lost the one you knew, but I'm still here in some way. And whatever I am now, it's for this." Her words hollowed me, because they were true. She stepped back. "Go, both of you. The valley's breath is shifting. You don't have much time." I hesitated only a moment before grabbing my flashlight, slinging my pack over my shoulder and heading to the door. Halstead followed, but before he stepped out, Cross called his name. He turned. She looked at him with those silvered eyes that saw deeper than memory. "Pull him back if the valley grabs him," she said. Halstead nodded. "Count on it." We stepped outside. The wind had changed direction, now sweeping east in a steady, unbroken current. as though the entire valley inhaled and exhaled toward a single point. Halstead zipped his jacket up to his chin. "That's our map, isn't it?" he said. "That's our map," I agreed. The moon hung low, veiled by thin clouds, casting a pale wash over the snow. The world looked dreamlike, a painting brushed in silver and black. Our boots crunched rhythmically as we crossed the clearing behind the lodge and entered the sparse line of trees. The deeper we went, the stronger the pull became, not a physical force, more like a sensation behind the ribs, an intuition, a pressure that leaned me in one direction and resisted when I deviated from it. Halstead noticed. "You're moving like you know where you're going." "I don't," I replied. "But something does?" We crossed into an older part of the forest, where trees thickened and the temperature dropped sharply. Frost coated every pine needle. Something in the air tightened, like we were passing through an unseen membrane. Halstead exhaled. "I hate this place." "Get in line." We walked another 10 minutes before the trees suddenly opened into a clearing. The ground here was different. Ice spread across the earth in a perfect circle, unnaturally smooth, polished like glass despite the cold wind and drifting snow. In the center sat a single crack, a thin, jagged line no wider than a fingernail, glowing faintly with pale blue light. Halstead swore under his breath. "That's it, isn't it?" I felt it before I answered. "Yes," I whispered, "the heart is below." We stepped toward the ice. The ground vibrated softly beneath our feet, a pulse timed with my heartbeat. No, not my heartbeat, the heartbeat of something older. The moment I reached the crack, a hum rose from the ground, building steadily until the air trembled. Then the ice split. A jagged fracture tore outward from the crack, racing in a perfect circle around us, breaking the surface like an eye opening. The ground dropped, revealing a cavern beneath. A shaft of cold blue light shot upward past my face, illuminating the trees above. Halstead grabbed my arm. "Nathan, stop!" But the valley had already chosen. A voice rose from below, soft, whispering, ancient. Nathaniel. It knew me. It always had. And the descent had already begun. The ground gave way beneath us with a sound like the slow tearing of fabric, an ancient wound ripping open again after centuries of strain. Halstead instinctively grabbed my arm, pulling me back from the widening fracture. But the valley wasn't allowing choices anymore. A cold draft surged upward through the opening, spiraling around my legs like fingers urging me forward. The wind carried a low hum, rising and falling with a cadence eerily close to breathing, the breath of something vast beneath the ice. "Nathan," Halstead said sharply, tightening his grip. "Look at me, don't lean in." But I already was. Not because I wanted to, because the pull was too strong. The blue light spilling from the crack wasn't light at all. It was movement, a swirling current of cold energy rising from the abyss below. It brushed against my skin like static, pushing into my pores, tugging at the threads of my thoughts. It felt like memory, like something inside me recognized it. Halstead's hand clenched around the collar of my coat. "Don't even think about going down there. I will drag your ass back to the lodge myself." The wind surged again, stronger this time, hard enough to make him skid a step forward with me. Snow burst upward from the clearing in violent spirals. "It's calling you," Halstead growled, "and you're listening." "I'm not trying to," I said, voice shaking. "Then stop leaning toward the giant glowing hole in the ground." "I'm not leaning." "You're leaning." Before I could argue, the hum shifted, deepening, expanding, vibrating through the trees. The ice around the opening lit up in a circular ring, symbols burning bright beneath the surface, like veins of frozen lightning. Halstead stared. "Oh, damn it! That's a boundary." "No," I whispered, "that's a gateway." His face drained of color. "Same thing." A sharp crack echoed from the opposite side of the clearing. The ice parted further, widening into a gaping opening 10 feet across. The wind intensified, howling through the cavity like a throat. Halstead pulled me back with both arms. "We're leaving, now." But the valley had other plans. The crack pulsed once like a heartbeat. Then something spoke from the depths below. A whisper, resonant and ancient. "Descend." My legs buckled, my breath stopped. That single word hit me not through my ears but through my bones, vibrating in the space behind my sternum. "Nathan," Halstead shook me hard. "Stay with me." I can't." My voice broke. "It's inside my head." The whisper grew louder. Not a voice, but a presence. "Come back. Come below. Come home. Home." The word lodged in my throat like a memory I didn't want, but couldn't deny. My father's voice rose unbidden in my mind. Not real, not literal, a phantom echo. "Don't go there, Nathan. Don't ever go where I went." I staggered back. Halstead grabbed my coat. "Fight it, you hear me? Fight whatever the hell this is." I tried, but then the air shifted and the valley changed its approach. A shadow rose from the opening, tall, thin, rippling with liquid darkness. Not the collector from the Nexus. This was something older, amorphous, barely coherent in form. It drifted upward like smoke under water, stretching tendrils toward the surface. Halstead drew his gun on instinct. "Oh, hell no!" The shadow didn't react. It wasn't interested in him, only in me. Tendrils of darkness arced through the air, slow, steady, floating like they were sensing the heat of my body. They stopped inches from my chest, hovering, trembling. I couldn't move. Halstead aimed at the nearest tendril. "Touch him, and I swear—" "Don't shoot," I whispered. "You'll piss it off." "It's a nightmare tentacle coming out of an ice pit, Nathan. I think it's already pissed." But even through the fear, through the cold, through the rising panic, I felt something, not danger, recognition, like the thing knew me, like it had been waiting. I took a slow breath. "I don't think it's trying to harm me." Halstead stared at me like I'd lost my mind. "Of course it is. This is its idea of a welcome mat." But when I lifted my hand, the tendrils froze, then gently mirrored the movement, not attacking, not grabbing, testing. Halstead grabbed my wrist. "Don't you dare touch it." "I'm not." "Your hand is literally reaching out to touch it." "I'm not doing it on purpose." Even as we argued, the tendrils drifted closer, brushing the air in front of my fingers like they wanted to learn my shape. They pulsed faintly with a rhythm I recognized before I understood it. Halstead's eyes widened. "Nathan, that pulse, that's your heartbeat." My breath caught. He was right. Each pulse matched mine perfectly. The same frequency, the same timing, the same echo. "This isn't a creature," I whispered. It's connected to me." Halstead swore loudly. "Wonderful. You have a psychic tether to a cosmic ice monster. Great. Love that for us." But I wasn't listening to him anymore, because the tendrils shifted, splitting, widening, forming a spiral that pointed downward into the chasm. An invitation. "Nathan," Halstead said again, softer this time, fear creeping into his voice. "Don't move. If you go down there, you are not coming back up." "I have to." "The hell you do." I turned to him, feeling something heavy press against my rib cage. If this is a breach, if this is what's been pulling the valley open, it won't close itself. And I'm the only one who can reach it. "You're not alone," he snapped. "Cross said you'd need me." "She said you must not step into the breach." He clenched his jaw. I stepped closer to him. "Listen, if the valley rejects you, it won't just stop you. It will kill you. I can't risk that." Halstead looked away, jaw trembling. "You think I care what it risks? After everything, I do." I grabbed his shoulder. "I care." He swallowed hard. "Nathan, if you die down there—" "I'm not planning on dying." "People like us don't plan," he growled. "We react, we improvise, and we die trying to be clever." I almost laughed. "Then let me be clever one more time." The tendrils pulsed again. The valley was waiting. The wind howled around us, swirling in a perfect spiral toward the chasm. The ground rumbled beneath our feet. Halstead's hand dropped from my arm. "Damn it," he whispered hoarsely. "You're really going." "I am." He clenched his fists. "Then I'll be right here, at the top, and if you don't come back up, I'm jumping down after you." "Don't," I said. "Then climb back up," he snapped. I nodded, then stepped to the edge of the opening. The tendrils wrapped gently around my arms, not binding, not dragging, guiding, supporting. The breath of the valley rose, cold and constant. The darkness below glowed like a heartbeat beneath ice, and as I let myself be drawn downward, into the abyss that had waited for my bloodline for decades, I heard one last whisper, not from the valley, not from the breach, but from myself. "Dad, what did you promise?" The world tilted, the light vanished, and I fell into the heart of the valley. The fall didn't feel like falling. It felt like being taken. The world around me dissolved, not into darkness, but into layered swirls of deep blue and frost white, currents of cold energy twisting around my body like ribbons. There was no sense of gravity, no wind tearing past my ears, only motion, a slow, spiraling descent through a shaft that seemed carved not by hands, but by something that understood intention. My heartbeat thrummed loudly in my ears, but as I fell deeper, another rhythm joined it, older, slower, impossibly steady, a pulse that felt like the center of the earth breathing, the valley's pulse. "Nathaniel." The voice drifted through the air, softer now, as if spoken from a great distance, not threatening, not even demanding, just patient, like someone waiting for a conversation that had been delayed for decades. My descent slowed, then shifted, as though the valley adjusted its pull. The swirling frost parted, and I felt solid ground beneath my feet again. I stumbled slightly, bracing myself as the glow around me faded. When the light dimmed enough to see clearly, I realized I stood inside a vast subterranean chamber, larger than any cavern I'd ever imagined could exist beneath Whitmore's land. It wasn't natural, not remotely. The walls were smooth stone, etched with spirals carved deeper and more intricately than anything in the Nexus. Thin lines of blue energy pulsed through the carvings like veins, flowing in from every direction toward a raised platform in the center, the heart. The chamber's ceiling arched hundreds of feet above, covered in sheets of ancient ice so clear I could see frozen shadows suspended within. Shapes half-formed, barely recognizable. I didn't want to know whether they were human. The air was painfully cold, but heavy with something else. Weight, pressure, authority. The valley was awake here, and it knew I was standing inside it. I took one shaky breath. Why me? The chamber didn't respond with words, but across the floor the blue-veined spirals began to shift, very slowly, like the ground was breathing, exhaling frost. I approached the central platform cautiously, boots crunching on the crystalline surface. The closer I got, the stronger the pulse became, rising through my legs, up my spine, into my skull. It felt like recognition, a connection that wasn't new, a tether that had always existed beneath my consciousness. A cold realization crept into my mind. I'd been dreaming of this place for years. Childhood nightmares, the lake, the forest, the blue glow beneath the ice. They hadn't been nightmares, they'd been invitations, and I'd ignored them until now. When I reached the platform, the ground surged with energy. Blue light flared beneath my feet, spreading outward in a ring. In the center of the platform was a single symbol carved deeper than the rest, a spiral pattern I hadn't seen before, except I had, on the night of the fox, on the inside of the cabin door, on Cross's journal, on the boundary marker that cracked. It was the mark of the chosen lineage, my lineage. A whisper rose, not from the valley but from memory. Your father came here once. Cross's voice, echoing through my mind. He made a promise. My stomach twisted painfully. I knelt beside the spiral, brushing my glove across the surface. The moment I touched it, the stone ignited, light flaring through the symbol and shooting outward like a ripple of lightning. The ground vibrated beneath me, and a vision slammed into my mind. Not a hallucination, a memory, not mine, my father's. The chamber around me dissolved into a violent storm of images, rushing snow, swirling shadows, a younger version of him running through these tunnels, breath-ragged terror in his eyes. Then I saw it, the same platform, the same symbol, the same light, and standing before him, a shape, tall, silhouetted by frost, a form of shifting cold and shadow, not the collector, not the emissary, something older, the one who makes the deals, the one who seals the vows, the voice of the valley. My father fell to his knees, trembling violently. Please, he begged, not me, not yet. The entity regarded him silently. My father whispered something I could barely hear, but when the words registered, my chest tightened so hard it felt like a knife was driven through it. I offer my firstborn. The vision shattered. I reeled backward, landing hard on the icy stone, chest heaving. I wanted to scream. I wanted to deny it. I wanted to believe I'd misunderstood, but I hadn't. He had said it. He had promised me before I even existed. Nausea churned through my gut. The chamber tilted, the ice above seeming to pulse, almost pitying. I didn't choose this, I whispered into the vast hollow. And for the first time, the valley answered, not in words, not in a voice, but in a sound. Soft, resonant, ancient, a sound like mourning. The spirals along the walls dimmed slightly, their light softening. A cold wind passed through the chamber, brushing against my face like a hand. A feeling washed over me. Regret, not mine. The valley's. It wasn't cruelty that brought me here. It was completion, continuity, the closing of a contract it never wanted in the first place. Cross had told me the valley wasn't evil, it simply remembers. And now it remembered everything. The platform began to glow brighter, and I stood on instinct because something else was rising from the spiral. A new shape, a figure not of shadow, not of frost, but of memory and light. It formed slowly, taking on the outline of a man, a familiar one. I froze. No, I whispered, breath-breaking. No, not you. Because the figure standing before me, slowly forming from the valley's memory, was my father, not alive, not whole, not truly there, but here, a remnant, a fragment of the pact he made. He stepped forward, flickering slightly, like a film viewed through frost. Nathan, he said softly, and the sound of his voice nearly broke me. Anger surged up. Why? Why did you promise me? Why did you give me to this place? He didn't react with shame or fear, just sorrow. I didn't understand, he whispered. I didn't know what it would take. Then why didn't you stop it? Why didn't you come back? He closed his eyes. I tried. My pulse hammered. Tried? How? His form flickered again. The boundary marks everyone who bargains with it. I tried to return. I tried to call it back. I begged it to take me instead. A cold tear slid down my cheek. But it wouldn't, he said, because the valley doesn't break its rules. Silence filled the chamber, heavy, crushing, infinite. I stared at my father's ghostly reflection, rage and grief twisting together inside me. Then why am I here? I whispered. Why did the valley call me now? To finish what you started? His expression changed, slowly, into something I hadn't expected. Fear. No, he whispered urgently. Nathan, you're here to close the breach. The valley brought you because you're the only one who can stop what I unleashed. My blood ran cold. What you unleashed? The entire chamber shook, just once, but violently enough that cracks split across the ice overhead. My father's form flickered chaotically. Nathan, listen to me. What's coming through that breach isn't the valley. The floor ruptured beneath us. A roar echoed from the darkness below, deep, monstrous, nothing human. My father shouted my name. The valley's pulse surged, and the heart of the valley opened beneath my feet. The crack widened with a sound that vibrated through my spine, a low, grinding groan like the valley was waking from a long sleep. The ice split beneath my boots, and Halstead yanked me backward just before a section caved inward, sending shards clattering into the darkness below. A gust of freezing wind surged upward from the open maw in the ground, carrying the scent of stone, old water, and something else, something metallic, almost electric. Halstead kept a white-knuckled grip on my jacket. Nathan, I swear to God, if you jump into that thing— I'm not jumping, I said, though even I wasn't completely convinced, because something was calling me, not in words, not in voice, in memory, and not my memory. Halstead leaned forward, peering into the opening with his flashlight. The beam illuminated a narrow descent, layers of ice coating the rough stone, glistening like wet glass. The shaft spiraled downward at a sharp angle, too steep to climb safely, too narrow to lower equipment through. But the light didn't reach the bottom. It just swallowed the beam like the darkness was thicker than the cavern itself. Great, Halstead muttered. It's a death chute. The wind shifted again, flowing upward with more force. Snow hissed across the ice like the valley was exhaling. Then I heard it, the whisper. Nathaniel. Halstead didn't seem to hear the voice at all, only the wind. You felt that? I whispered. Felt what? He asked. So it was meant only for me. My stomach clenched, because that meant the valley wasn't calling us. It was calling me. The ground around the crack vibrated again, faint but unmistakable. Halstead backed up a step. Okay, that is definitely not normal. We need gear, ropes, something. We're not going down there tonight. If we wait until morning, the breach opens, I said. And if we go now, we're dead. He had a point. The valley wasn't subtle about what happened to people who ignored common sense. But my amulet warmed suddenly against my chest. Not burning, not hot, just alert. Like it was waking up. The symbol etched into the stone pulsed softly with pale blue light, the same color that glowed faintly from the crack in the ice. Halstead saw it and grimaced. Oh, come on. No, that is not good. That is extremely not good. The amulet vibrated again, syncing with the hum rising from the ground. I moved it closer to the crack. The heartbeat in the ice responded, faster, louder, resonating in my bones. Halstead stepped back. "Nathan, don't." But the moment I held the amulet directly over the crevice, a beam of blue light shot downward, illuminating the spiral shaft all the way to the bottom for the first time. We both froze. Because the light revealed something impossible. There was a structure carved into the stone at the bottom of the cavern, not natural, not geological, a doorway, ancient, angular, built from black rock that didn't reflect light, and across its surface, symbols, dozens of them, the same sigils we'd found carved around Whitmore, the same twisting geometry that made the eye ache if you stared too long. Halstead whispered, "Holy hell." This was where the breach would open. This was the heart. But there was something else. The doorway wasn't closed. A narrow slit, no wider than a hand, glowed with the same color as the amulet, pulsing like a heartbeat. Something was trying to push through. I reached instinctively for my radio. Static snarled instantly. No interference, no signal. This was deliberate. The valley didn't want us calling for help. Halstead regained his voice. "We need to leave, right now. I'm not losing you in some ice cave to an ancient whatever the hell." Before I could respond, the wind changed again. But this time, it wasn't wind. It was breath, slow, cold, exhaling from the crack with purpose. We stepped back as the air thickened, charged with static that made my hair rise. Then came the sound. Not the whispers, not the heartbeat. Footsteps from below. Slow, methodical steps on stone, growing louder as something approached the doorway. Halstead swore, voice trembling, "Nathan, Nathan, we have to—" But he stopped mid-sentence because a shape appeared behind the slit in the doorway. Something tall, something thin, something that moved like a shadow learning to stand. The slit widened another inch, stone grinding against stone. The ancient doorway pacing itself like it wasn't opening, but waking up. Then the whisper rose again. "Nathaniel, come home." Every bone in my body locked, because that wasn't a call, it was a memory, not mine, my father's. "Nathan," Halstead whispered, grabbing my arm, "it's speaking to you. Whatever that is, it knows you. We're leaving, now." But he wasn't pulling me back. He was gripping me like he expected me to run forward instead, and a small, shameful part of me almost did, because something deep in that doorway knew my name, knew my blood, knew my father. I forced myself to step back. The slit stopped widening. The footsteps paused. The valley held its breath. Halstead didn't. "Oh, hell no," he muttered, turning and dragging me backward. "We're done. We're done. I don't get paid enough for this." But just as we backed away from the crack, a voice shouted through the trees, "Halstead, Nathan!" We spun around. Cross stood at the forest's edge, no coat, breath frosting the air in sharp bursts. Her eyes were brighter than ever, glowing silver against the moonlight. "You have to leave now," she said, voice shaking. "The breach is shifting." "What do you mean shifting?" Halstead demanded. Cross pointed behind us. We turned. The crack in the ice was closing, not naturally, deliberately, like the valley was sealing itself and trapping something inside. Or someone. I felt the amulet pulse again. The heartbeat below intensified. Cross shouted, "Move!" Halstead shoved me hard, and we sprinted toward the tree line as the ice behind us snapped upward, sealing the opening like a mouth snapping shut. A final echo rose from below, too distant for Halstead to hear, but clear enough for me. Not a whisper, a promise. Soon, the ground shook once, violently, then fell still. Silence swallowed the clearing. We turned in unison toward Cross. Her expression was grim, resolute, almost mournful. "It wasn't ready to open tonight," she said, "but you woke it. The valley knows you now. It remembers you." I stepped toward her slowly. "What does that mean?" Cross lifted her gaze to mine, and for the first time that night, genuine fear flickered behind her silver irises. "It means," she whispered, "that when the breach finally opens, it won't be searching for the valley." Her voice broke. "It will be searching for you." The wind howled through the trees, carrying with it a sound I'd heard only once before. A thin, high, distant laugh. The kind that didn't belong to any human child. Halstead turned pale. "Tell me you didn't hear that." I didn't answer, because something in that laugh wasn't a threat. It was anticipation. We stood together in the clearing, three silhouettes against a frozen world, knowing that the boundary hadn't been repaired, the darkness hadn't been defeated, and the rules we'd lived by were changing faster than we could keep up with. Somewhere beneath the ice, the footsteps resumed, and the valley whispered a single word carried on a breath of cold air. Soon, the clearing fell into a silence so complete it didn't feel like silence at all, more like the quiet pressure beneath deep water. Cross stood unmoving at the tree line, breath rising in pale clouds, eyes reflecting stray moonlight like two silver coins. Halstead adjusted his stance beside me, shoulders tense, one hand hovering near the flashlight, clipped to his belt as if anything that fragile could fend off what we'd just awakened. I stared at the sealed crack in the ice, the faint line where the ground had split and then fused itself back together smooth as glass. It was as if the valley hadn't just closed. It had blinked. Cross swallowed once. "It wasn't supposed to react to you yet." Halstead snorted a short, harsh sound. "Oh, great! So it's... what? Early?" "No," Cross whispered. "It's early for us, not for it." The amulet against my chest gave another dull throb, as if responding to her words. A low hum rolled through my ribcage, a pulse that didn't belong to my heartbeat. Halstead noticed the movement in my shirt. "That thing is glowing again." "It's reacting," Cross said, taking a step toward us. "And so are you." I turned toward her. "Tell us what that means." Cross hesitated, not the kind of hesitation that meant she didn't know, the kind that meant she didn't want to tell us. "I need you both to listen," she said, voice steadier now, "because from this moment on, nothing in Whitfield is going to behave the way you expect. Not the rules, not the valley, not the things that wait behind the breach." Halstead exhaled sharply. "Cross, please stop talking like a cryptic oracle for 5 seconds and just tell us what the hell is happening." She didn't snap back. Her eyes softened with something that looked like regret or guilt. "It's remembering," she said. "What is?" I asked. "The heart," she replied. "The thing beneath the ice. The one your father swore himself to. The one he promised you to." The night closed around me like a fist. I felt Halstead step closer, bracing himself as though I might fall, but Cross wasn't done. "It doesn't forget what it's owed," she said. "It never forgets." Halstead rubbed a hand over his face. "Well, you know what? That's great. That's just terrific. Love having cosmic debt collectors in subarctic towns." Cross continued as if she hadn't heard him. "Tonight wasn't the breach opening. Tonight was the heart testing the boundary. Testing you." A shiver crawled slowly down my spine. "And?" I asked. "And it didn't retreat because it was beaten," she said softly. It retreated because it recognized you. Halstead stiffened. Like, recognized him how? In a, hey, look who's home kind of way, or more of a, finally my dinner arrived situation. Cross glanced at me before answering. An air. Silence. Real silence. The kind that makes everything in your body pause, waiting for the next breath. Halstead broke first. Oh, hell no, no, absolutely not. We are not doing this. He is not the heir to a supernatural ice nightmare. Cross didn't blink. He already is. And there it was. The truth I didn't want. The truth I already felt in my bones. The heartbeat under the ice wasn't trying to devour me. It was trying to claim me. I forced myself to breathe. So if I'm its heir, what does it want? Cross shook her head. I don't know. No one living knows. But I know this. The breach doesn't open for Whitfield. It doesn't open for the world. She pointed at my chest, at the amulet that pulsed beneath my coat. It opens for you, Halstead swore under his breath. So we've got, what? Some ancient thing that wants Nathan like a lost puppy? That's the big threat? Cross's voice dropped even lower. You didn't see what I saw on the other side. Then tell us, I said. Cross turned her head toward the forest, scanning the tree line as if she expected something to step between the pines at any moment. When I crossed over, she whispered, the world didn't look like ours. The sky was wrong, the air felt thick, and the ground... She hesitated. The ground moves there. My skin crawled. It's not a place, she said. It's a living thing, a thinking thing, and you... She leveled her gaze on me. You're the only one it's ever marked at birth. That means something none of us are prepared for. Halstead clapped his hands together once. Okay, let's rewind. Are you saying the valley is alive? Like the whole region? Cross nodded once. And Nathan is its heir, Halstead said flatly, meaning it wants him to take, what, the throne? A job? A desk position in Nightmare HR? Cross didn't smile. When the breach opens fully, she said, it will call him again, harder, louder. It won't be a whisper next time. It'll be a command. The amulet suddenly heated against my skin, sharp enough to sting. What happens if I refuse? I asked. Cross closed her eyes. It won't let you refuse. The wind kicked suddenly, swirling snow around our ankles in frantic spirals. The trees groaned. Somewhere deep in the forest, a low moan rose. Too long, too unnatural to be an animal. Halstead stepped in front of me. We're leaving, all of us, right now. No, Cross said firmly. Halstead turned. Excuse me? You need to go, she said, Ray. Nathan especially. That's what I just said, Halstead snapped. No, Cross repeated. Not away from the valley, not to the station. You need to leave Whitfield. I stared at her. What? The valley won't let me leave, she said quietly. I'm tied to the breach now, but you... She stepped closer. You can still break its grip if you go now, if you go far. Halstead laughed once, bitter. Great. We'll just hop a flight right after we outrun the eldritch ice monster that marked him before he could walk. Cross didn't look amused. It won't chase him outside the valley, not yet. Not yet, Halstead repeated. That's supposed to be comforting? Cross's eyes shimmered again, brighter than before. The farther he goes, the weaker its call becomes. Nathan, you have one chance to put distance between you and what's beneath that ice. And then what? I asked. Then we prepare for when it comes for you. The words landed cold and heavy. Prepare how? Halstead asked. Cross exhaled a shaky breath. by finding out what it truly is, by uncovering what your father did, by following the markings across other valleys. There are others, Nathan. Whitfield isn't the only place where reality is thin. My stomach tightened. You're saying this isn't isolated? No, she said. It's part of something larger. How much larger? Halstead murmured. Cross lifted her eyes toward the horizon. The whole boundary, she said softly. The one that separates our world from the other one. It's weakening. My pulse spiked. And the breach here is the first one that wakes, she said. Not the last. The snow fell harder, faster. The world around us dimmed as if the valley was listening, holding its breath. Halstead grabbed my arm again. We have to decide now, he said. Are we running or are we staying? A faint hum began beneath us. So quiet only I could feel it. A tremor of recognition or warning. Above the tree line, the sky flickered faintly with an aurora. Not green, not blue, but something between. Cross looked up sharply. It's starting again. You don't have much time. Halstead turned to me, face pale but determined. Nathan, say the word. I looked between them. Halstead, who'd risked everything. Cross half here, half something else, and the sealed crack that still pulsed faintly like a sleeping eye. Running felt right. Running felt wrong. Both at once. Because I knew one thing with absolute certainty. The valley wasn't done with me. I stepped back, breath fogging the air, and before I could speak my decision, a single sharp sound shot across the clearing. Crack, not from the ground, from the tree line. Something stepped between the pines, something tall, thin, faceless. The same thing I saw on my first night here, and behind it, another and another. Halstead's voice went hoarse. Nathan, pick, Cross whispered. It's already searching. My amulet burned like a brand. The faceless figures tilted their heads in perfect unison, waiting, expecting. The valley breathed in, and I exhaled one word. My breath misted in the air, suspended between the freezing night and the three faceless figures emerging from the trees like silhouettes cut from shadow. Their long limbs swayed gently, unnaturally, as if the wind pushed them in directions the wind wasn't blowing. Behind me, I felt Halstead tense, every muscle locking in that split second before instinct becomes action. Cross inhaled sharply, the frost forming a white halo around her lips. They were waiting, and the valley waited with them. I didn't know why the word came out of me. Maybe panic, maybe instinct, maybe the faint echo in my blood that the valley had awoken. But the word that left my throat was the last one any sane man should ever utter in a moment like that. Stop! The clearing froze. Literally, ice cracked outward from my boots in a spiderweb pattern, thin crystalline lines racing across the surface like veins. The air solidified around us in perfect stillness. Even the snowflakes hung suspended mid-fall. Halstead didn't move. Cross didn't move. The faceless figures didn't move, and the valley answered, not in a voice, not in sound, in pressure. An invisible weight pressed against me from all sides, like standing in the center of a massive heartbeat. My ears rang, my vision narrowed. The amulet against my chest pulsed so violently it throbbed up into my throat. The faceless figures tilted their heads in unison. Then they knelt, all three, slowly, gracefully, as if bowing. Halstead's whisper cracked. Nathan, what did you just do? I don't know. Cross stepped forward, eyes wide, silver irises shimmering like mirrors catching torchlight. It's recognizing you, she breathed. Nathan, it heard you. I didn't call anything, I said, but my voice was thin, swallowed by the cold. You answered it, Cross replied. There's a difference. A distant rumble vibrated beneath our feet, deep underground, like something shifting inside the sealed cavern. The faceless figures rose again in one synchronized motion, then parted, creating a path straight towards the tree line, straight into the dark. Halstead shook his head violently. No, absolutely not. That is an invitation to get murdered. Cross stared at the open path, her expression torn between awe and terror. It's guiding him, she whispered. This is the valley's will. I turned to Cross. What's waiting out there? She shook her head faintly. Not the heart, not the breach, something else, something between. The wind picked up, swirling the suspended snowflakes back into motion. The air thawed just enough for me to breathe again. Behind the faceless figures deeper in the woods, a faint blue glow pulsed, slow, gentle, rhythmic, like a lantern swaying in the dark. Except it wasn't a lantern, it was a beacon calling me. Cross grabbed my sleeve. If you follow that light, you step off the map. You leave everything behind. This world, us, yourself. Halstead stepped up beside me. Then we're not going. End of discussion. But even he couldn't hide the tremor in his voice. The glow pulsed again, stronger this time, and that whisper rose, not from the cavern, not the trees, but from inside my chest. Nathaniel. The amulet seared with heat. My heart skipped, my knees wobbled, I staggered. Halstead caught me under the arm. Nathan, stay with me. Hey, stay with me. But I barely heard him, because another sound rose in the forest. Footsteps, fast, unsteady, human. Cross whipped her head toward the noise. Someone's coming. Halstead raised his flashlight. Who? Branches snapped. Snow flew. A figure stumbled into the clearing. A man, covered in tears of ice, breath heaving, eyes wide with terror as he collapsed to his knees. I recognized him instantly. Rogan, I gasped. Deputy Leonard Rogan, missing for 3 weeks, presumed dead after vanishing during a storm on the North Ridge. He lifted his head, face gaunt and hollow. Run, he rasped, voice shredded. You have to run. Cross rushed to him. Rogan, what happened? Where have you been? Who brought you? But he coughed violently, gripping her wrist with trembling fingers. It's waking, he choked. The heart. No, not the heart. Something else, something older. It's coming through. Halstead knelt beside him. Coming through what? Rogan turned slowly, too slowly toward me. When his eyes locked onto mine, the clearing seemed to tilt. He whispered a name. Not mine, not Halstead's, not Cross's. A name I had never heard before, but one that hit me like a hammer. It wasn't English, it wasn't human. It curled unnaturally in the air, bending sound around it, and when he said it, the valley changed. The wind died instantly. The aurora above flickered and vanished. The faceless figures retreated several steps, not in fear, but in reverence. Halstead looked at me sharply. Nathan, why did he just say you're... He didn't, I whispered. That wasn't my name. Cross inhaled sharply. It's the name the valley gave you. My chest tightened painfully. Rogan reached a shaking hand toward me. You have to choose, he rasped. Go with it or run, but you can't do both. If you hesitate, it'll decide for you. Halstead stood up slowly, positioning himself between me and the forest. Nathan, look at me. We walk out of here together. No more voices, no more glowing cracks in the ice, no more ancient whatever the hell calling you by its pet name. We go, now. Cross rose to her feet too, standing opposite Halstead. If he leaves now, he might survive. If he stays... "You don't know that," Halstead snapped. "Yes," she whispered, "I do." The blue glow in the woods pulsed again, brighter, stronger, answering me, inviting me. Rogan's voice was barely audible. "You don't have long. It's waking faster than before. The breach will open soon." I felt my legs pull forward, just an inch, but enough for Halstead to grab my arm again, hard. "Nathan, don't!" The valley pulsed again. The amulet pulsed again. The whisper rose again. Time slowed. The faceless figures stepped aside a little more, widening the path. Cross whispered urgently, "Nathan, choose!" Halstead shouted, "We're leaving!" Rogan trembled violently on the ground. "Decide!" And I opened my mouth. To speak. To choose. To decide whether I would run deeper into the valley or run from it forever. But just as the word formed in my throat, another voice spoke behind us. A woman's voice, one I hadn't heard in years, my mother's. "Nathan," she called gently, "come home." My blood ran cold. Cross's eyes widened. Halstead stumbled back. Rogan screamed, because the voice wasn't coming from a person. It was coming from the woods, from the direction of the beacon. Something stepped into the edge of the glow. A silhouette, a familiar one, a figure the exact height and shape of my mother. But she'd been dead for 8 years. The valley whispered one last time, "Choose." At first, I couldn't breathe. Not because of fear, though I had plenty of that, but because the voice that drifted from the tree line struck something deep inside me, something old, something buried. "Nathan, come home." My mother's voice, exactly her voice, the timbre, the softness, the lilt at the end of home she always used when she wanted me to come in from the dark. But the woman who used that voice no longer existed. The silhouette stepped another inch into the pale blue glow. The contours of her face were still obscured, but the outline of her shoulders, her posture, even the way her head tilted, it was her. Or it was something wearing her shape. Halstead lifted his gun, not aiming, just trembling with it. "Nathan, don't move. That's not your mother." Cross whispered, "It's using memory. It's showing you what you want most." Rogan, still on his knees, shook his head violently. "No, no, it's not showing him what he wants. It's showing him what it remembers." His voice cracked on the last word as though the meaning terrified him. Cross's eyes widened. "It remembers her?" Rogan nodded, horrified. "It remembers everything, every deal, every fear, every person who's ever touched the boundary. The valley keeps them. It stores them like pieces. Like pieces." The idea felt wrong in my bones. The figure stepped even closer. Now I could see part of her face, enough to know it wasn't a perfect imitation. Her smile was too still, her eyes too reflective, her skin too pale, but her voice, "Nathan, sweetheart, it's cold. Come here." Ice slid down my spine. Because that phrase, word for word, was the last thing she ever said to me before the accident. A memory I had tried to forget because it was all I had left. Cross whispered, trembling, "Nathan, don't answer it." But the figure raised a hand and said the one thing she should never have known. "Your father is waiting." My heart stopped. Halstead turned to me. "Nathan, listen to me. That is not real. Do not take a step toward that thing." Cross grabbed my wrist. "If you answer it, you open a path. If you open a path, it will take you." "But what is it?" Halstead snapped. Cross didn't answer. Because she didn't know. The faceless figures beside the path lowered their heads again, not in threat, in reverence, like they were bowing to the shape in the glow. Rogan began to sob. "It's choosing him." It's already choosing him. The not my mother figure moved her hand gently, coaxing. You don't have to be afraid, she murmured. I've missed you. I shook my head violently, but the words burrowed into me like warmth in the cold. The longing I felt was sharp and painful, but something was wrong, very wrong. Her reflection in the snow. It wasn't mine beside hers, it wasn't Halstead's, it wasn't Cross's. It was the reflection of a tall, thin shape behind her, clinging to her shadow like a second body, a parasite, a puppeteer, a presence. When she stepped forward again, the shadow behind her stretched impossibly tall, far taller than she ever was. Cross saw it too. Nathan, look at the shadow. I did, and that was when I understood. This thing wasn't wearing her shape, it was mimicking the memory of her. The valley wasn't just remembering her, it was recreating her from my memory, and if it could do that, it could do anything. Halstead whispered shakily, Nathan, I'm begging you, step back. I forced myself one step away. The figure reacted instantly, her voice deepened just slightly, enough to break the illusion. Nathaniel, come. My blood went cold. Cross inhaled sharply. Oh no, it's not mimicking anymore, it's dropping the mask. Halstead raised his gun fully now. Stay behind me. The figure moved fast, too fast, her posture snapping unnaturally as she took another step forward. The shadow behind her split into two, then three, writhing like tendrils searching for ground. Rogan screamed, Don't let it touch him. The trees shivered, the wind died, the valley held its breath. The not my mother figure tilted her head too far to one side, past human limits, and the skin along her neck cracked like thin ice. You belong with us, she whispered. The tendrils behind her lashed forward. Halstead fired. The gunshot exploded through the clearing, but the bullet never hit. It froze midair, suspended in front of the figure, vibrating like a fly caught in amber. Halstead staggered back. What the hell? Cross grabbed my arm and yanked. Move! But the faceless figures blocked our retreat, three dark silhouettes standing in silent formation. Trapped, the amulet burned against my skin. The breath of the valley rose, and the tendrils lunged again. Suddenly, a violent crack ruptured across the ice, not from the breach, from the sky. A shockwave of blue light erupted overhead, like the aurora had split open, flooding the clearing in a blinding, unnatural glow. The not my mother figure snapped her head upward, hissing. Cross shielded her eyes. What is that? Rogan sobbed. It's too early. It's too early. It shouldn't open yet, Halstead shouted. What is opening? Rogan turned toward me with a look of absolute despair. The second breach. The ground shook beneath us. Trees bent. Snow lifted off the earth. The faceless figures bowed deeper. The shadow tendrils recoiled like they feared the light. Cross grabbed my shoulders. Nathan, this is it. This is your choice. Run with us now before the second breach picks you up like a signal. Halstead yelled over the roar. Nathan, move! The not my mother figure reached for me again. The blue light flared. The ground split. And the valley whispered, the air awakens. The ground lurched beneath us as though something enormous rolled over far below the surface. Snow blasted upward in spirals, swirling around us like a white cyclone. My ears rang, my vision fractured, the world tilted sideways. Cross clung to my jacket, anchoring me, her silver eyes reflecting the chaotic light, splitting the sky overhead. Halstead braced himself against a broken tree stump, shouting something I couldn't hear over the rumbling. Rogan crawled backward through the snow, his voice shredded with terror. It's waking again. It's not supposed to wake twice. the not-my-mother figure distorted in the blue light, her shape glitching, freezing, reforming with unnatural precision. Her face split into two expressions, then three, then none at all. Her shadow stretched violently across the ground, like a stain being pulled in every direction at once. The faceless watchers surrounding us dropped to their knees again, but this time it wasn't reverence. It was submission. The sky flickered, the ground trembled, the light grew brighter, too bright. Cross grabbed my face between both hands. "Nathan, listen to me. If the second breach opens while the first is still active, the valley won't be able to control what comes through." I stared at her, barely understanding. "There's more than one breach?" "There are 7, she said. 7 gates across the boundary, and this valley is only one." Halstead shouted, "7! Cross, you are telling us way too much way too late." She ignored him. "The valley isn't just calling you," she continued, voice hoarse. "Something on the other side is calling back, and it's not waiting for permission." Another violent crack split through the night, this time from the opposite direction. A column of pale light tore upward through the trees to the south, erupting like a geyser of lightning. Halstead spun toward it, eyes wide. Nope, absolutely not. We've got 2 of these things now." Rogan let out a broken laugh. Two? That's nothing." "Nothing at all." Cross's grip tightened on me. "Nathan, you need to get away from here, now, before the breaches recognize you as a signal." "A signal?" I echoed. "The air," she whispered. "You're the key the other side is listening for." Before I could speak, a scream ripped through the forest. Not human, not animal, not anything of this world. A chorus of voices, hundreds layered on top of each other, echoing the same single note, a warning or a greeting, or both. The not-my-mother figure snapped her head toward the second breach, body twitching with violent spasms. Her face flickered between familiarity and monstrosity, her jaw unhinging slightly as if something inside her wanted to crawl out. Her voice layered, fractured, warped. "Nathaniel, chosen, air, open." Cross shoved me back. "Run!" But the faceless watchers rose, blocking the tree line behind us in a wall of shadow. Halstead raised his gun again, firing 3 rounds at the nearest one. The bullets hit. This time they didn't freeze in the air, but the holes closed instantly, like pushing a finger into water. Halstead swore. "Nathan, if you have a brilliant idea, now is the time." I didn't, until I felt it. A tug on my chest. Not from the valley, not from the breaches, from the amulet. It pulsed once, hard, with purpose, and for the first time I sensed direction. Not toward the breaches, not toward the watchers, not toward the mimic wearing my mother's form, but behind me, toward the northeast ridge. Cross saw my expression. "Nathan, what is it?" I swallowed hard. "I think the amulet wants me to run." Halstead grabbed my arm. "Perfect, let's go." But Cross didn't move. Her expression darkened, fear, confusion, and awe twisting together. "No," she whispered. "It's not telling you to run." Rogan stared at her, shaking, lips pale. "Then what is it signaling him to do?" Cross slowly turned her gaze toward the second breach, then toward the north. "The amulet is choosing," she said. "It's responding." "Which means—" She looked straight at me. "Something else is calling you, something older than the valley." I shook my head firmly. No, I'm not following another light. I'm not answering another voice." "You already are," she said softly. As if to prove her right, a third pulse shot through the sky, a faint, distant flash, far to the west, then another, and another. Halstead's jaw dropped. Oh, hell no, no way, Nathan, those are different. Those are different breaches. Cross didn't look away. They're waking in sequence. Rogan broke into hysterical laughter. Spreading, they're spreading, they're spreading. 7 gates waking like teeth in a jaw. Cross ignored him, stepping closer to me. Nathan, there's something you must understand. The knot my mother shaped snarled behind us, cracking, splitting, reforming. The faceless watchers closed in. The ground rumbled like something massive was rolling beneath the frozen soil. Tell me, I said. Cross placed a trembling hand over the amulet. When the breaches open, she said slowly, they're not just looking for the air. Her eyes lifted to mine. They're looking for their king. The word king hit me like a hammer, not because it sounded dramatic or supernatural, but because Cross didn't say it with reverence. She said it with fear, a trembling, exhausted, bone-deep fear. Halstead didn't understand the weight of it yet. He threw his hands up in disbelief. King, king, oh great, fantastic. We've gone from valley ghosts to… What? Royalty from the other side? This is above our pay grade. Rogan pressed both hands to his temples. No, no, no. If the king wakes, the gates won't stay in sequence. They'll synchronize. You don't want them synchronized. You never want them synchronized. Cross stared at the horizon, at that faint western flicker that shouldn't exist. Nathan, she murmured, you feel it, don't you? I wanted to deny it. I wanted to shout no until the mountains shook, but I did feel something. A vibration just behind my sternum, a pressure in the air around me. A sensation like invisible lines were being drawn between me and the breaches igniting across the landscape, and all of them were pointing one direction, northwest, toward the oldest range of Whitlock Basin, toward the uncharted cliffs locals avoided even in summer, toward something buried, waiting, listening. I don't want any of this, I said quietly. I just want to protect Halden Ridge. Protect my town. Cross's eyes softened with something like pity. That's exactly why it chose you. Before I could answer, the ground cracked again. A vein of pale light tore across the snow at our feet, like lightning frozen mid-strike. The knot my mother shape lunged, but not at me. At Cross. She shoved me sideways. I hit the ground hard, snow blasting into my face. Cross rolled, narrowly avoiding a set of talon-like fingers that slashed the air where her throat had been a second earlier. Halstead fired again, cold rounds sparking against the creature's shifting limbs. Rogan screamed, scrambling backward toward a log. The watchers tightened around us like a noose. Cross gasped, dodging another attack. It's trying to sever the link, she shouted. What link? I yelled back. You, she said. The king's path. If they kill the air before the breaches align, the awakening resets. So they're trying to stop this, Halstead barked. Now they want to be heroes. No, Cross said. They're trying to control it. The faceless watchers turned their heads toward her as if offended by the accusation. Just then, a whip of icy wind spiraled upward, stealing the air from my lungs. The sky dimmed. The light around the breaches wavered, and then something called my name, not aloud, not whispered, not spoken. The sound arrived inside my skull like a memory I'd never lived. Nathan, I gasped. My hands trembled. Halstead grabbed my arm. Hey, stay with me, buddy. Don't drift into whatever cosmic nonsense is calling you. Cross lunged and slapped her palm onto my chest, onto the amulet. The call stopped. Instantly. like a door slammed shut. Her face was inches from mine, eyes glowing faintly in the flicker of the breaches. "Never answer that voice," she warned, "not even in your mind." I nodded slowly, heart punching my ribs. Behind us, the watchers shifted restlessly, but the not-my-mother creature moved with violent purpose, its limbs bending at angles that no living thing could endure. When she spoke again, her voice cracked like broken glass. "Nathaniel, air, chosen, open, open." Cross backed away, hand still on my amulet. "She's not here to kill you," she whispered. "Then what the hell does she want?" Halstead snapped. Cross swallowed hard. "She wants him to accept his role." "Which is what?" I demanded. "What exactly is the heir supposed to do?" Rogan answered, voice thin with terror. "To open the seventh gate." My blood froze. "The seventh? What?" Cross didn't correct him. She didn't deny it. She just looked at me with guilt and grief. "You already felt where it is," she said. "The amulet is tied to it, and unfortunately, so are you." Halstead shook his head. "Nope, absolutely not. Nathan is not opening any supernatural doors. We are leaving this valley and pretending none of this ever happened." Rogan laughed wetly. "Leave? Leave? You can't leave. Gates follow the air. They always have." Cross winced. Rogan, shut up. But he kept going, eyes wild. "The gates bond to the air. Once they awaken, they track the signal. Valley, mountain, ocean, it doesn't matter. He can't outrun it." I stared at Cross. "Is that true?" She didn't speak. She didn't blink. Her expression said enough. Halstead stepped between us. "Nathan, don't listen to them. You can break this bond. We'll figure something out." But Cross exhaled shakily. "He can't break the bond." "Why not?" Halstead demanded. "Because the bond is in his blood." Silence fell. Halstead turned very slowly to look at me. "Buddy, is there something you want to tell me? Something about your family tree?" "I don't know anything," I insisted. "My mom's family died in a landslide before I was born. My dad never talked about it." Cross nodded grimly. "That's why the breach recognized you. You come from the first Watchers." Rogan added quietly, "The original guardians of the king." My skin crawled. "Stop calling me that." "Then stop answering the call," Cross said softly. I didn't realize how close the not-my-mother creature had gotten until her shadow fell across us. She leaned forward, face shimmering with static, mouth opening in a soundless scream. Cross shoved Halstead and me backward. "Move." The creature's arm came down like a blade, and the ground beneath us exploded. A pillar of blue fire burst upward, knocking all of us off our feet. The last thing I saw before the shock wave hit was the Watchers falling to their knees once more, facing me as if bowing. The world spun. The snow lit up. My vision blurred at the edges, and from somewhere beyond the breaches, beyond the valley, beyond everything alive, a second voice whispered, deeper, older, awakened, "Nathaniel." This time it didn't sound like a call. It sounded like recognition. The second voice didn't echo. It didn't vibrate through the ground or the sky. It vibrated through me, a low, resonant recognition that felt like my own pulse saying my name back to me. "Nathaniel." It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Something ancient had just noticed me, and not noticed the way a predator notices prey. This was different. This was ownership. My vision swam in ripples of blue light. Shapes blurred. Cross's hand reached toward me but stretched like a smear across the snow as my senses fractured. I couldn't hear the wind anymore, couldn't feel the cold, couldn't even distinguish where my body ended and the snow began. The world dissolved into two things: the voice, and the pull. A gravitational tug toward the northwest cliffs, the direction everything had pointed since the breaches first awakened. I tried to speak, but the words died in my throat. My head buzzed like it was full of electricity. Then, hands grabbed me, human hands. "Nathan! Nathan, look at me! Stay here!" Halstead's voice snapped reality back together like duct tape on a cracked window. The light around me dimmed sharply. Cross hauled me upright from the other side, gripping the amulet with her free hand. Her face was pale, strained, panicked in a way even the Watchers hadn't caused before. "You almost crossed," her voice cracked. "You do not let yourself drift like that again. Ever." I swallowed hard, chest heaving. What do you mean, crossed?" "I didn't move." Halstead shook his head. "No, buddy. You didn't move on the outside, but you were gone." Eyes glazed, breathing slowed. "You weren't here." "Your consciousness nearly stepped through," Cross corrected. "And if your mind crosses first, your body follows. Permanently." Rogan was crouched several feet away, hugging his knees, rocking back and forth like he was trying to drown out a nightmare he'd seen too many times. "They always hear their name first," he whispered. "Always, always. That's how he starts the claiming." The Not My Mother creature stood near the edge of the crater, left by the blast of blue fire. Her faceless features rippled, reforming, adjusting, like she was waiting to see what identity I would respond to next. But she didn't attack. Not anymore. Instead, she bowed her head. Cross inhaled sharply. "Oh, God, she's offering submission." Halstead blinked. "She's what?" Rogan made a choking noise. "No, that's not submission. That's obedience. She serves the king." "And now," Cross added, voice sinking to a whisper, "she serves the king's heir." My stomach twisted. Everything inside me rebelled. "No," I said. "I don't accept that." "I didn't ask for any of this." Cross shook her head slowly. "You don't choose the inheritance, Nathan. The inheritance chose you." "Then how do I reject it?" "You don't." The cold hit me again, not outside, inside. A realization so chilling it felt like ice water poured down my spine. Rogan lifted his head. "There's only ever been one way to break the bond." Silence swallowed the clearing. Even the Watchers seemed to lean in, listening. Halstead whispered, "Don't say it." Rogan ignored him. "The heir must die before the seventh gate opens." Cross closed her eyes. Halstead looked away, jaw clenching so hard I heard his teeth grind. I stared at Rogan. "Say that again," he swallowed. "The only way to stop the king's awakening is for the heir to die first." My heart hammered, my palms went cold. Cross stepped between us, voice hardening. "No one is killing anyone. We are not repeating the old cycle." "What old cycle?" Halstead demanded. Cross sighed shakily. "The first Watchers were created to prevent the king from waking. Every generation had an heir. And if the king stirred, if the gates aligned, the heir had to be sacrificed before the final breach opened." My breath caught. How many times?" Cross's eyes glimmered with decades of buried grief. "Too many. That tradition ended in 1963. We vowed to find another way." Rogan muttered, "And now it's back because you refused to do what was necessary." Cross spun on him. "The necessary thing isn't murder, Rogan. It's strategy." "Strategy?" he snapped. "There is no strategy. The gates are aligning. The king is stirring. We all saw the blue fire." "Enough!" Cross shouted. The valley fell dead silent except for my pounding heartbeat. The Watchers didn't move. The Not My Mother creature didn't move. Even the wind stopped. Cross turned back to me. "Nathan, listen carefully. You are not dying. Not today. Not ever. Not as long as I'm standing. Halstead nodded fiercely. I second that. Anyone even looks at you wrong, I'll put a cold round through their skull, ancient curse or not. But something about Rogan's words stayed lodged in my mind like a splinter. If the only path they used to know was sacrifice, then why hadn't the king awakened in decades? What stopped him last cycle? Something didn't add up. And worse, something inside me already understood the answer. The voice had called me heir, not prey, not offering, heir. The word rattled in my bones. Cross must have seen something shift in my expression because she spoke quickly. Don't give him access to your thoughts, not even curiosity. Curiosity is the first step to claiming. I nodded, trying to steady my breath. But another tremor ran through the valley. Lights flickered, snow lifted off the ground as if gravity forgot how to work. Rogan scrambled behind a boulder. Halstead drew his weapon. Cross gripped her amulet hard enough to bruise her palm. And the not my mother creature. She straightened, as if the voice had summoned her. Static rippled across her body. Her arms stretched outward, long, grotesque, ceremonial. She whispered in a voice that was not hers. He comes, he wakes, he remembers. The air must witness. A pulse exploded outward. The world shook. And something enormous shifted beneath the northwestern cliffs. Not movement, not breathing, awakening. Cross grabbed my shoulder with both hands. We need to leave, she said urgently. Now, before he opens his eyes fully. Where do we go? Halstead asked. Cross looked directly at me. Where every air runs first. Which is where? She inhaled deeply. The seventh gate. My stomach dropped. You said we needed to avoid that place. We do, Cross said. But we can't anymore. Why not? Halstead demanded. Cross didn't blink. Because the seventh gate is opening, with or without us. And if we don't get there first, something else will step through. Rogan whimpered. The watchers parted, giving us a path. The not my mother creature bowed low, limbs trembling. And the voice whispered, Nathaniel, come home. I took one step back. Cross tightened her grip. It's too late to turn around. The next chapter has already started. And I realized she wasn't speaking figuratively, she meant it literally. The ground behind us cracked open with a thin line of soft, glowing blue. Another breach. The gates were accelerating. The king was stirring, and we were running out of time. The breach behind us widened with a sound like ice cracking across a lake. A thin fissure of blue light snaked along the frozen ground, pulsing like a heartbeat, my heartbeat. I didn't need Cross to say it, I already knew. This one was tied to me. Cross didn't waste time. Move, she shouted, pulling me toward the tree line. If the breach bonds to your consciousness before we reach the ridge, the king gets a direct channel. Fantastic, Halstead muttered, raising his rifle. As if we didn't already have a direct channel. But he followed. Rogan scrambled after us, tripping over his own footsteps, his breath coming out in ragged clouds. Behind us, the watchers stood perfectly still, dozens of them, silent, faceless, waiting. And at the front, the not my mother creature bowed again, slowly, like a priestess performing a ritual. Halstead glanced over his shoulder. Should we be concerned about the fact that the demons from the discount aisle of hell are being polite now? Cross answered without looking back. Concerned? Yes, because they're only ever polite when the king is almost at the surface. Almost. The word hit me harder than I expected. It meant not yet. It meant there was still time. It meant a very thin sliver of hope still existed, but it also meant the window was closing. Fast. We pushed through the trees, snow crunching under our boots. The wind howled overhead, ripping through branches that swayed violently against the darkening sky. The further we ran, the colder it got. Not physical cold, something deeper. A cold that crawled under the skin, sank into bone marrow, and whispered that it had always belonged there. Cross felt it too, her breath hitching, her steps faltering for a second before she steadied herself. "Don't let the cold in," she said. "How?" I asked. "You don't think about it." Halstead barked a laugh. "That's like telling a man on fire not to think about heat." But Cross didn't smile. "Not thinking about it is the only shield we have right now." Rogan whimpered. The king is reaching already. He never reached this soon." Cross spun around and grabbed him by the collar. "Get it together. If you fall apart now, he'll use your fear to accelerate the gate." Rogan nodded shakily, wiping his nose with his sleeve. Right. No fear, don't feed the breach." We continued north, deeper into the forest. The trees grew taller, almost unnaturally so, forming a canopy that blocked out the moonlight. The air thickened as faint vibrations hummed through the ground. The direction was unmistakable. Up ahead, a faint orange glow flickered behind the cliff ridges. Halstead squinted. "What's that?" "Light from the 7th Gate corridor," Cross said. "The fractures reflect each other. Remember what I told you. Gates synchronize," I finished. "And synchronization is bad." Cross nodded grimly. "Very bad." We reached a break in the trees, a narrow granite ravine that sliced through the landscape like an ancient scar. The moment I stepped onto the stone path, the amulet against my chest pulsed, not painfully, more like recognition or alignment. Cross saw it. "He feels you approaching," she said softly. "There's no hiding anymore." I clenched my jaw. Then we moved faster. It surprised all of them, even Cross. Rogan stumbled. No one rushes toward the 7th Gate. I'm not rushing toward anything," I cut in. "I'm just refusing to run away from it." Cross's expression shifted. Respect, fear, something else I couldn't read. Halstead gave a sharp nod. "All right, let's finish this, and afterward, Nathan, you're taking a very long vacation someplace, with 0 cliffs and 0 supernatural bloodlines." But as we continued down the ravine, the temperature plunged again. This time, it wasn't subtle. The air froze solid in my lungs. My eyelashes crusted with frost. Icicles formed mid-fall from melting snow. Halstead swore under his breath. "This isn't natural cold. This is sentient," Cross said. "He knows we're getting close." The wind shifted suddenly, howling through the ravine, with a sound that wasn't wind at all. A layered, fractured hiss, like words spoken by someone who had never used a human mouth before. Nathaniel. The name slithered through the air. Cross shouted, "Don't answer!" "I'm not," I yelled back. "That includes thinking back at him." I froze. "Wait, he can hear my thoughts?" Halstead grimaced. "Buddy, he's your cosmic father, mentor, landlord. I don't know, but he's definitely got premium access." Cross spoke more calmly. "He hears intention, not thoughts. Don't form meaning, don't focus, don't respond." Hard not to respond when something ancient was testing your mind like a locked door. Then, up ahead, the ground glowed. Blue veins of light pulsed through the granite walls as we approached a narrow arch of stone that led into a cavern that hummed with deep, distant energy. Halstead swallowed hard. "Cross, please tell me that's not—" "It is," she said. "The outer threshold of the 7th Gate." Rogan immediately turned around. "No, No, 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 this is too soon. It shouldn't be this open. Cross grabbed him again, shaking him until his teeth clacked. We don't have a choice. Halstead pointed to me. What happens when he crosses that line? Cross inhaled deeply. Once Nathan steps into the threshold, the king will see him fully. My pulse kicked. You mean he doesn't see me fully now? Cross shook her head. He's only sensing you, glimpsing you, but once you cross, it becomes a two-way view. A two-way, I whispered. You mean I'll see him? Yes. Halstead's eyes widened. Oh, hell, let's not do that. Cross turned to me again. You said you weren't running. If that's still true, then this is the moment. My heartbeat thudded in my ears. The arch loomed in front of me, shimmering with ancient energy. The air behind us cracked as another breach split open in the forest. Time was up. I took one slow breath, then stepped forward. The moment my foot crossed the stone arch, everything changed. The cold vanished. The forest vanished. The wind vanished. Even my body felt weightless. And then something opened. Not a door, not a gate, a consciousness, a presence, huge, dark, endless, sleeping but no longer entirely asleep. And for the first time, I felt it looking back at me, not with eyes, with awareness. Nathaniel. The voice came again, deeper than mountains shifting. Not a call, not a command, a memory, as if it already knew me, as if it had been waiting. Welcome home. The ground trembled. Cross shouted something I couldn't hear. Halstead grabbed my arm, but his hand passed through my sleeve like smoke. Rogan screamed and fled into the trees because the light inside the arch surged, and the king of the other side began to wake. The light swallowing me didn't burn, didn't blind, didn't hurt. It simply claimed. Like a tide pulling a single grain of sand back into the ocean it had always belonged to, for a moment I felt suspended outside myself. No snow, no forest, no Halden Ridge, no watchers, no cross, no fear. Only him, a silhouette the size of a mountain, a consciousness older than the concepts of age, a presence so vast it didn't bother forming a shape. It let my mind fill in the void with whatever frightened me most, and whispered, Nathaniel, you carry my breath, you carry my mark, you carry what was taken from me. The words weren't accusations, they were promises, across worlds, across time, across blood. I tried to speak, but the thought never escaped my throat. Instead, he continued, 6 gates open, the 7th stirs. Come, air. Finish what your ancestors began. Then everything slammed back into place. My lungs filled with freezing air. The ground hit my knees. The arch of the 7th gate flickered violently, its glow dimming as if retreating from something. Cross grabbed me, shaking hard. Nathan, Nathan, look at me. Tell me what you saw. I couldn't speak. Halstead crouched beside me, breath trembling white in the cold. Buddy, you with us? Please tell me you're with us. Behind them, the forest trembled with movement, watchers shifting nervously as if they'd felt something. Even they feared. The light surrounding the arch pulsed once, twice, then snapped inward like a dying ember. Not closed, just resting. Cross followed my gaze. It didn't finish opening, did it? I shook my head. He's close, I whispered, but not awake. She exhaled shakily. That buys us time. Not much, but some. Halstead clapped a hand on my shoulder. So what now? We blow up the ridge, burn the valley, move to Florida? I looked at Cross. She looked at me. Even Rogan, huddled behind a boulder, lifted his head. They all knew the truth before I said it. He'll wake again, I whispered. The gates will flare again. and the watchers won't stop following me. Cross nodded, resigned but resolute. That's why we're not leaving Halden Ridge, not running, not giving him what he wants. Halstead groaned. Here we go? The stand our ground speech. But Cross continued. We study the breaches, we track the cycles, we find the tools the first watchers never had, and we keep him contained, not by sacrifice, not by tradition, but by understanding. Halstead raised a brow. And what's Nathan's part in this? Considering he's apparently the heir to some apocalypse king, Cross placed a hand on my shoulder. He's the one link the king can't fully control, and the one link we can use. I swallowed. You're saying I'm bait? No, she said softly. I'm saying you're the shield between both worlds. You didn't choose the bloodline, but you can choose what it becomes. The wind shifted. Snow drifted softly through the broken branches overhead. The watchers faded silently into the tree line, leaving only faint impressions in the snow. The not my mother creature lingered last. She bowed her head. An acknowledgement, a warning, a vow, and dissolved into the shadows. Rogan approached slowly, eyes wide with terrified reverence. He didn't take you, he saw you, and still let you go. I looked back at the arch. The stone was still warm, faintly pulsing with heartbeat like rhythm. He didn't let me go, I said quietly. He's waiting. Cross inhaled sharply. For what? For me to open it. A silence stretched between us, cold, heavy, inevitable. Halstead cursed under his breath. Well, that's fantastic, truly lovely. Can't wait for season 2 of Nathaniel and the Cosmic Demon Dad. But despite his sarcasm, he stepped beside me. Cross did too, and even Rogan, trembling though he was, stood with us. We weren't finished, not even close. As we began the long trek back toward town, the valley behind us throbbed with distant energy, as if the king's heartbeat pulsed beneath the snow. And I knew this wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of a responsibility I never asked for, never sought, but now carried whether I liked it or not. The gates would open again. The king would stir again, and when he called next time, I would be ready, or I would have to learn how to be. Either way, Halden Ridge wasn't done with me, and I wasn't done with it. Not until I learned how to protect a world linked to another one trying to break free. Not until I understood the full truth of my bloodline. Not until I found out why he kept calling me. Yes, the king whispered faintly, like a breath on the back of my neck. Come home. I didn't turn. I didn't answer. But for the first time, I didn't feel powerless. Because the story wasn't finished. It was only turning its next page.